Welcome to Sweet Valley Diaries, where once every 40 books, we kill off a beloved character to teach kids that drugs are bad. Book number 40, On the Edge.
Is it all over between Regina and Bruce?
So, hi, welcome to Sweet Valley Diaries. I am your host, Marissa Flaxbart, and I am joined today by guests, Dr. Anjali and Greg Kasunich. Hi, Greg and Anjali.
Hey, how's it going?
You know, I've been getting messages from people that are really warming my heart about how they've been listening to the podcast, and it's been so great to have, you know, something that's a distraction from all the pain and sadness and fear in the world. And boy, I would love for this to be an episode that was also serving that purpose, but I don't know if it can be, because this is an episode that for 39 books now we have been building up to, and I have just been dreading just kind of dropping this bomb on the poor listenership of the readership of the world. I mean, most of you probably already know what happens in this book, but it's bad. It's bad news. But hey, Greg and Anjali, is this your first Sweet Valley High novel?
Yes, and it was a doozy. I was a roller coaster for me.
Yeah, it was my first novel as well. Not novel ever. It's my first Sweet Valley High novel. And boy, I had no idea what to expect. I really thought that these books were one thing, and they turned out to be something completely different. So yeah, I can't wait to talk about it.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm really eager to unpack that a little bit. But also, I guess I want to say right off the bat that these books usually are something that this book is not. I think that Sweet Valley High novels typically are kind of like romance novels, in that, you know, you go in, something intense and scary happens, and then there's a happy ending. And maybe the happy ending doesn't come in that book. There have been a couple of cases like Elizabeth's motorcycle accident and the fallout from that, and when Pprsche Martin dies, which it doesn't come up in this book, but the listeners, gladiators, know what I'm talking about. That's way back when Pprsche Martin died. You know, but it's like the characters heal and we move on. And bad things happen to people, but usually they're not people that we know very well. And this is a book where something terrible happens and it's not a happy ending, and you think it's all set up like, okay, she's going to be saved in the last minute. And, you know, spoiler alert, like this is the book, this is the one where Regina Morrow dies. I feel like I have to say it at the top. Is that bad to say it at the top?
No, I don't think so. I think even knowing that she dies, I don't know. I mean, I think that again, I had no expectations about what this would be. So I thought that, yeah, maybe this would be a little bit more like a, you know, the serialized version of a sitcom like Saved by the Bell or something, where somebody, you know, what's the one where Jessie ends up on speed?
Oh my god.
She's on like caffeine pills is how they call it, because Hot Sunday has to perform for like a music executive, and she's also trying to study a lot and she doesn't have time to practice. Yeah. I know a lot about that scene because I used to perform it by request when I was in high school as like a one-woman show, which maybe, Gladiators, if you want, maybe that can be a bonus episode during the hiatus, which is forthcoming. I can perform for you.
Yes. Okay.
But yeah, I thought it would be something, you know, akin to that, where we see a character go through this really hard time. People learn lessons. They come out the other end, closer friends. And so it was definitely a shock to me. But I think knowing that up front will color a lot of our observations going in through the beginning of the book and where things are leading, because it definitely doesn't seem like it's going to get that dark.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I read the book after Greg read the book, and so I didn't know that this beloved character was going to die at the end. So Greg knew where I was when I was reading, where I'm like, what?
Oh my god.
It was so fast.
It does. Things escalate
so
very
fast.
quickly. Yeah, it gets...
Here's how much of an Elizabeth I am. I started reading this book, and I was like, for weeks now, go back and listen to the tape. It's out, available for public hearing. I've been saying, oh, Amy thinks that she and Bruce are going to get together, but Amy's full of shit. Bruce would never leave Regina. You guys, I have read this book before. I was so caught up. It's been a long time, but I was so caught up in the idea that, like, Amy's a liar, Bruce and Regina have a happy relationship, and remembering some of the things that we'll get to that happen in this book, that I had, like, rewritten history in my head that it was all a big misunderstanding, which is very common in these books, misunderstandings. So, oh my gosh, we're champing at the bit to, like, really get into the plot, but I feel like we should set the stage for the listeners by describing the cover of this book.
Oh boy, where do we begin? I don't know these characters at all. Again, first time reader here.
Well, after reading it, I mean, you kind of assume who the girl is on the cover.
I think it's Regina.
Yeah.
Is that Regina Morrow on the cover?
It's Regina Morrow. She looks weird though. Like she just looks much less glamorous than she usually does.
Right.
Yeah, she looks a little bit hungover, to be honest. She's kind of holding her head in her hand. She's resting her head on her hand, and her forearm looks really long. I think the illustrator was just trying to get that pose right.
Yeah.
And I think she's pining over a framed photo of Bruce that's on her vanity. I think that's Bruce.
Or perhaps Tony Danza.
Yeah.
Yes. It's everybody has black and white photos in this universe. There's another cover where Jessica is holding a black and white photo of Elizabeth. So Regina has a black and white photo of Bruce Patman that looks ripped straight off of the cover of book 3, Playing with Fire. That is classic Bruce Patman face.
Okay.
I can see how you're getting Tony Danza vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I was just gonna say, she's just like, has her elbow on her vanity and she's just like mooning over this photograph. I don't think this happens in the book as described.
This is definitely not a scene in the book. She also has this, like, glint in her eye that's a little, like, judgmental or angry. Like, it's not so much pining as it is, like, almost suspicious.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. She looks pissed. Like, her face is angry.
Yeah.
I didn't really notice that because the pose and the staring at the photo seemed to embody a kind of longing that I didn't look carefully at her face. And what artist James Matthews has done here, I think, has planted a little bit of disgust in Regina's expression.
A little bit.
She looks like she's trying to plot her revenge. Like, there's something like she is thinking about how she is going to, just really stick it to this guy. There's something in there.
Yeah. It just, her downturned lips, and it's like, this fucking guy.
Yeah, and then we've got, your classic, I think it's a perfume bottle. Is that what we're seeing?
Oh, yeah.
And then a lamp that I swear my sister owned. So, yeah, pretty accurate. I wasn't sure who the guy was, because I have never seen the cover of there's a version of the cover in my brain of what a Sweet Valley High cover looks like, but I couldn't tell you what one was. So I didn't know that was Bruce, so I just had to discover that along the way. I thought maybe it was Buzz at one point.
Oh, Buzz. Oh, God. I guess we can start right at the beginning of the book. I already alluded to the whole Amy of it all. One thing that I'm super curious is to see how the history of this world came across to you all in this book. Because, damn, there is a lot of asides. There's so many characters. There's so much crazy stuff. So did you guys get across Regina's backstory at all? Because it is also one of the wilder ones of anybody in Sweet Valley.
Oh, yeah. Her backstory is wild. And just the way that they insert the bits of her story just so casually throughout the book just has stopped me in my tracks at moments where I'm like, wait, what?
Right at the bat, I was already ready to judge the book for talking about how Regina had overcome so much by having her deafness cured in Switzerland, and that they were just going to totally skip over the fact that when she got back from Switzerland, she was held hostage, and her family was held hostage, and they were all at gunpoint. But then the book does bring that up later.
I think that's one of my favorite parts about reading this is not knowing anything about these characters and their history. She was like, man, that really sucked. Kind of like the time I was held hostage at gunpoint. But, on to this other thing, And so, there's these really quick asides where they'll allude to this like major life event as if like, whatever, these things happen.
Yeah, I'm gonna just pull a couple of key words.
Please do.
Because there were yeah. She calls it including the dreadful episode when she had been forced onto a plane at gunpoint and brought back to Sweet Valley to be held hostage in her parents' home. The dreadful episode.
What is she comparing it to? Do you remember?
Oh man. So she's talking about how Bruce really loved her. He had been faithful to her the whole time she was in Switzerland and stood by her through some tough times, including this dreadful episode of
some
being
tough times.
Held at gunpoint.
We've all had some tough times.
Yeah.
When you...
Just real, yeah.
And you get held hostage and... yeah.
Well, and many gladiators, we call our listeners gladiators will recall this book very well because I'm sure a great many of you came to the show after listening to the episode where this happened. The book is called Hostage, ! And Jack Shepard and Tanner Greenring from the Babysitters Club podcast were my guests for that one. So, yeah, remember that? Well, that is mentioned in this book, and I like all of the popular highlights. I read the Kindle version of the book. All of the popular highlights seem to be related to that storyline. Like, whoever was reading it was just like, wait, what happened? And they just had to highlight it.
Yeah, this one should have been called Cocaine!
Cocaine, man. But the whole story starts with a rumor that Amy Sutton is telling. Amy Sutton and Bruce Patman are working on this health project that's about drug use in Sweet Valley. But Amy feels like Bruce is falling for her, and she is encouraging that by telling him that they can only meet with her cousin Mimi, who's like a drug expert, even though apparently she's like 19 years old.
Yeah, in college.
And in college, yeah. I guess everybody knows the college students in Sweet Valley are very like plugged in to the scene of what's happening in town. That's actually been true throughout.
Yeah, I imagined her as one of those like sort of hard-boiled undercover journalists, from like the 1970s, chewing on a toothpick, infiltrating, the underbelly, the seedy underbelly of Sweet Valley.
Sure. But early on, all we know about her is that Amy has purposefully been kind of scheduling these meetings, like, oh, this is the only time Mimi can meet. She's making this up so that she and Bruce will be spending Friday evenings together. Bruce has been canceling dates with Regina so that he can work on this project. At the start of the book, Amy sweeps into cheerleading practice and is like, I was right all along. Bruce is falling for me. He's definitely going to dump Regina. And even Jessica Wakefield is skeptical of this, but she turns really quickly, right? From being skeptical to being super psyched about the prospect of, like, romantic intrigue.
Well, so I have a question here, because in not having read any of the books before, I kind of got a sense right off the bat that Amy was awful.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you thought of Amy. She sucks.
You're the worst, aren't you?
She is the literal worst.
Yeah. But my question, and perhaps you can enlighten me here, is, so are Jessica and Amy friends? Because I didn't quite understand their relationship here. Like, there's a part where when Amy's telling Jessica about how, oh my gosh, Bruce is totally falling for me, it's totally happening, and Jessica, there's a part where it says Jessica narrowed her eyes at the blonde, trying to imagine what Bruce Patman might see in her, and thinking, wow, do you like her? Like, because, I mean, if it was a friend of mine, I'd be like, oh my gosh, well, of course, you're amazing, of course, but I'm like, she's looking at her like, why would a guy like you?
That's so true. I would say that Jessica and Amy are friends like Regina George and Gretchen Wieners are friends. It's like they're part of a popular girl friend thing, but it's very like Machiavellian. It's very like power structure, because eventually Jessica takes this rumor home to Elizabeth, who is scandalized at the idea that Amy thinks she's going to steal Bruce away from Regina, but also a little bit worried, like, Amy's a liar, but if this rumor is getting out, maybe I should tell Regina. And Jessica is like, no, you can't tell Regina, because I'm just realizing now that Regina George, that was a confusing example because we're talking about like the only other fictional character in history named Regina. But anyway, putting Mean Girls aside. So Regina Morrow, our character, Elizabeth, she and Elizabeth are good friends. And Elizabeth is like, I have to tell her that there's this rumor because it will be horrible if she finds out otherwise. And Jessica is the one that's like, no, you can't do that. And the only reason is because she's afraid of like retribution from Amy. Like Amy's going to ruin her life if she finds out that Jessica like blabbed to Elizabeth. And that's what made Regina find out. And then Bruce and Regina don't break up or whatever. It like blows everything up.
Yeah, there's a lot of mental and emotional energy spent over whether or not, rumors should be, if somebody should tell somebody something else. I feel like a lot of the book, which, to be honest, really did take me directly back to high school.
Yeah.
In this whoa, I remember the pettiness of, well, if I say this to this person, they're going to know that I said it. And if they know that I said it, they're going to be upset about, like that just sort of like bullshit that happens. And you're like, oh wow, yeah, this kind of captures that spirit, the spirit of those kind of petty squabbles pretty accurately.
Yeah, I think that I was thinking the same thing when you were describing all of the mental energy. Like, oh, that really does sound like how high school works. So Elizabeth talks to Jeffrey, her boyfriend, about it and basically decides she's not going to upset Regina. It's probably just a rumor. That's important. That Elizabeth thinks the same thing that I had misremembered about this book, which is that Amy is just kind of making it up. But then the covering was removed from my eyes in this big scene, which if you'll indulge me, I'm going to read a very long scene from this book where Amy and Bruce have a flirtation. If only just because it'll be kind of fun and also scandalous in a soap opera way. This is in chapter 2. May I read for you?
Please.
All right, gladiators, I'm doing this for you too, not just for Greg and Anjali. So Amy and Bruce are at Bruce's house. They're out by the pool or something working, and she is flirting with him really hard. And she feels like he's been resisting kinda, but she's like making her big play. I had this amazing dream last night. She fixed her eyes intently on his. I dreamed that you and I were out in the middle of nowhere together, just the two of us, and we were talking about our report, and all of a sudden, she tried her hardest to look embarrassed. That summer spent studying acting back east was sure paying off now, she thought. Bruce looked positively mesmerized. Oh, never mind, she said, pretending to be annoyed with herself. Why am I bugging you with my dumb personal stuff like my dreams when we have all this work to do? No, go on, Bruce pleaded, fascinated. What happened in the dream? Amy stared at his lips. It's kind of embarrassing, she whispered, so caught up in her act that she almost forgot she was making the whole thing up as she went along. Tell me, Bruce said, entranced. I promise I won't hold it against you. It's only a dream, right? Yeah, Amy said huskily, her knee against his. But remember what we learned in our psychology unit. Don't some people think dreams represent wishes or something? Bruce stared at her. Tell me what you dreamed, he repeated. Amy took a deep breath. She had him exactly where she wanted him now, she thought triumphantly. Well, she said softly, leaning closer to him. We were, in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden, she gazed meaningfully up into his eyes. All of a sudden, you were kissing me. She dropped her eyes demurely. See why I'm embarrassed? She asked. Amy, Bruce said huskily, leaning forward and covering her hand with his. In the old days, Bruce Patman would never have let an opportunity like this pass him by, and it was clear he was fighting now with his conscience. Amy fixed her eyes quizzically on Bruce's. His lips were just inches from hers. If he just turned his head the slightest little bit. What if I told you that I really do want you to kiss me? She whispered, still staring at him. Bruce groaned. Lord, Amy, you're completely irresistible. Then he bent forward and brushed her lips quickly with his. Amy slid her hand up behind his neck and pulled him closer as he started to straighten up again. A real kiss, she pouted. Like this. From the minute his lips touched hers, Amy knew she had won the battle. There was no way Bruce was going to stay with Regina now. Not when he knew what it was like to be with someone who really wanted him the way she did. Amy, Bruce repeated, pulling back and staring at her with the old Bruce Patman, all I care about is what I want look in his eyes. I can't believe the way you kiss, he said, shaking his head and pulling her closer to him. Who taught you how to kiss that way? Amy didn't answer immediately. She knew that what she said and did right then was incredibly important, and she wanted to make sure she didn't make a mistake. We shouldn't see each other again, she whispered at last, avoiding his gaze. I'm really sorry, Bruce. I had no business telling you about that dream. If Regina knew... Bruce frowned. What do you mean not see each other again? Are you kidding, Amy? I'm crazy about you. Amy fiddled with the edge of her notebook. But what about Regina? She asked coyly. I don't want to get between you two, Bruce. I couldn't stand that. Unless... She let her voice trail off. Unless what? Bruce prompted her. Unless you feel that things are almost over between you two, Amy said. That would be different. Then I wouldn't feel so guilty about... You know, the way I feel about you. Bruce tapped his fingers on the table. I don't know how I feel, he said, frowning. Until a couple of weeks ago, I thought everything with Regina was perfect. But the more time I spend with you, the more time I spend thinking about you. He gave her a cocky smile. I'd kind of forgotten how much fun it is to spread the wealth, to share the old Bruce magic with more than one girl. So...
That's Bruce. Thank you.
Yeah.
Extremely long scene, but I just wanted to get across the dynamic here. Bruce and Amy are the worst, and they are bad. And
So,
Can I also just point out, so this is a very small thing that just kind of kept popping up to me, especially in this scene and throughout the book.
is it the husky voices?
Yes! Why do so many people say things huskily?
Huskily, yeah.
I think they both said something huskily.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amy said something huskily. Bruce said something huskily. I'm pretty sure that Jessica said something huskily at some point.
It's like a husk off. I imagine them just getting closer and closer to the Batman voice. You know, by the end of it, they're just like, I love you.
They go from Batman to like full Bane.
Yeah, exactly.
First of all, I mean, I guess a husky voice is sexy for some people, but is that, like, that's used consistently? Like, is that super sexy? I don't know if I've done a husky. Do I get husky?
You can get husky.
Really?
I think we all have the ability to get husky.
But it's got to be you. It's got to be deployed, right? It can't just be you're always husky all the time.
You gotta deploy it, right. It's a secret weapon. I think, you know what I found really interesting about that scene is that it reminded me, as reading it and then hearing it back, so much of the same exact stuff that gets pulled on shows like The Bachelor.
Yeah.
Where it's like, can I borrow you for a second? I wanted to tell you, I had this crazy dream. What was it about? Oh, no, I can't say. No.
Oh my God. That is Amy Sutton. She is a Bachelor competitor.
Yeah.
Contestant. A Bachelor contestant.
She would totally be on The Bachelor. Oh my gosh. In the Sweet Valley High world, in that universe, she's 100% a Bachelor contestant.
She falls in love really fast, too, and then is, like, out of love. So, I don't know, that scene just boiled my blood, so I highlighted the whole thing. I was like, the listeners must know. But there's something else that's set up early on in the book, which is that Regina, who is, like, eating lunch alone, because Bruce also forgets to eat lunch with her, meets this kid named Justin Belson.
I don't even remember Justin Belson, if that gives you an idea of my... Which one is he? What does he do?
He's the guy who is, like, hanging out with her and their friend. Like, he's like people think he's a bad kid, but really his dad died.
He's like the main guy.
He's kind of sad and troubled, but also kind of bad news. And I just remember kind of first thinking, like, I feel like there was one scene, I think there was something in the book where it was like just something that kind of shows him off, and I pictured this about him when I started reading, where like he has a leather jacket, and there's something that they talk about in the book where they're like, oh yeah, like it was obvious that he was bad news because he wore a leather jacket. I'm like, oh man.
That stood out to me, too. It was, what it said, I believe, was that Regina's mother would not approve of the fact that he was wearing a leather jacket.
Yes.
Which seemed weird to me. Like, I bet Sky Morrow has tons of leather jackets. Speaking of which, this book says that Regina's mom, Sky, is 38 years old. Which means that she got pregnant with her older brother at 19, which is all well and good, but doesn't sound super much like what would have happened, but whatever.
Sounds like an Amy.
Oh.
I feel like the Justin character, I feel like I'd be friends with him in high school. Like, he seems like there's like a disaffectedness to him. There's an anger and a disappointment. Like, obviously he's had some like trouble at home and stuff.
Well, I mean,
but he doesn't seem like a bad guy.
I mean, he's had a troubled past. Like, his dad was straight up murdered.
Yeah.
Yeah, his dad was stabbed by teens.
Yeah.
In a scene that Justin describes as like being straight out of like a B cop horror movie. Justin is a very meta character. Like, he talks a lot about how his life seems like something from a bad cop show. And then Regina even says at one point that he seems like someone more like a character in a book than like a real person.
Yeah.
Well, to introduce Justin, because there aren't a lot of boys in this book, we can briefly move over to the part of the podcast where we talk about boys. Because I want to describe Justin for everybody.
Oh, he's a beautiful boy, he's a beautiful boy. I'm in danger of losing my head.
Justin Belson is a tall, slender boy with auburn hair and chiseled, attractive features. He seemed to spend most of his time either alone or with a crowd she barely knew. So he comes over to Regina. She's sitting at the lunch table and asks if he can sit down. It says, Regina nodded. Are you a junior? I don't think we've ever met before, have we? I'm Regina Morrow. Justin Belson, he said, putting his hand out to shake. Yeah, I'm a junior, but I should be a senior. I took a year off when... His voice trailed off. I had some family problems, so I took a little time off. He smiled at her, a crooked, disarming smile that made Regina feel a strange twinge of sympathy. I've always known who you are, though. You're the one who had your picture on the cover of Anjali magazine. He grinned. I've got 3 copies at home. I'm one of your biggest fans.
Yeah, that's so weird. Why?
It's really creepy. He's like, but Justin's charming. And I guess we can go ahead and say now that throughout this book, Regina and Justin have a friendship that seems like maybe he's trying to date her, but it becomes clear to Regina that Justin is still in love with his ex-girlfriend, Molly.
Yeah, I was
Right?
sort of like admiring his gumption there for a minute. He just everybody knows in high school it's hard to just pony up to some rando in the lunchroom, plop down your tray and just start talking, being like, "Hey, how's it going?" You know, I was with him until the magazine part. You know, it was like if he's like, "Oh yeah, I have a copy of that," whatever. He was like, "No, I've got 3 copies." I was like, "All right, yeah. Oh boy."
It's a little, like, obsessive. But, I mean, it works, so good for him. Like, Regina is interested in talking to him.
Yeah.
And she sees something in him that most people don't see because most people don't know him. All they know is that he has this kind of bad boy reputation. We already know, it's been established in Sweet Valley High that, like, being held back in school or taking a year off or dropping out, coming back for whatever reason is, like, something only losers do. So he's got this reputation, and that's going to be important, too. Now we get to this party, which was just gut-wrenching for me. I don't know how you felt having... I also just reread the book.
We're talking about the barbecue.
Is it the barbecue or the other? Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, the barbecue was a hard one. As well as the other party, but yeah. Can I point out something, though, that... I don't know if this stuck out to either one of you at the barbecue, but... When everybody shows up and they're introducing a few other people there, they mention one person. They really only mention him once, but this cracked me up. A guy named Winston Egbert. Winston Egbert, who suggests a game of frisbee baseball, which sounds really fun, by the way, to just get everybody up and playing. They say Winston Egbert, whose silly pranks had won him the reputation of being the clown of the junior class, wanted a game of frisbee baseball. Now, I feel like his silly pranks isn't what won him a reputation. It was the fact that his name is Winston Egbert.
It is a very amazingly named character. And so what we're describing is this scene, this barbecue that the Wakefields have. And I feel like Jessica has concocted this barbecue expressly. Like, it's like a drama barbecue. Like, she wanted to have Amy, Bruce, and Regina all in the same place so that everybody can, like, ogle them and, like, sparks can fly.
Can I ask a question? Is everybody in this book insanely wealthy? Is that, like, the idea?
Well, you might think so, and you wouldn't be the first one to think so. I think that it's like all of society is just kind of like bumped up a few notches from reality, because this house that they're at it's at the Wakefield's house, and they're just like supposed to be kind of like middle of the road, like normal. Well, it's like sitcom houses, you know? It's like the family in the sitcom doesn't seem like they're crazy rich, but their house, if you really take a look at it, is way nicer than like your average.
Yeah, I mean, they're like they have these amazing lawns and a pool, and you know, something about the way the houses are described. It just seems like everybody is.
Well, but this book is a little bit biased, I guess, because Regina and Bruce are those families, the Patmans and the Morrows, are two of the three richest families in the world. I mean, in the world of Sweet Valley, not in the world, the globe.
Right. There's like they have like housekeepers and stuff, and like they talk about that. And okay,
Yeah.
But what you're referencing, Anjali, was, I thought, a really interesting bit of writing, because Regina comes to this party, she sits down, she looks around, and it's like the book names out everybody that's there and like describes them in a sentence, you know? The Winston Egbert is the class clown, and Maria Santelli, she doesn't know very well, but he's her girlfriend, and, you know, Caroline Pierce is there, she's a gossip. Carol Walker's there. She used to be more of a gossip, but then she settled down and started dating Stephen Wakefield. It's like goes through in like one paragraph. It's like, here's a bunch of teenagers that I'll tell you about real quick, and they're all at the party. So I was putting myself in your your eyeballs reading that. I was like, oh, this is a lot of names, but also, hey, pretty succinct recap of who these people are.
Well, also at this barbecue, And I think not until later in the book, but where are Elizabeth and Jessica's parents at this barbecue? Like they're in high school.
Yeah.
Like why?
They're bad parents.
Why are their parents not at least checking in, or why is the dad not manning the grill? Why is it that one of them goes to Bruce and is like, "Hey, we heard you're really good on the grill. Why don't you?" I'm like, why are there no parents here?
Yeah, the Wakefield parents don't really make much of an appearance in this book at all. And when I say that they're bad parents, that's kind of more of the opinion of this podcast. The Sweet Valley Diaries podcast is trying to put it out in the world. Ned and Alice Wakefield are not model parents, but I don't think the book wants you to think they're the best parents ever. I said earlier that the barbecue seemed to be expressly for the purpose of this like love triangle explosion, and I don't think that everybody knows that. Like only Jessica knows that, but she's telling Elizabeth about it, and Elizabeth says to her, "Explain to me why you're looking forward to it," she pleaded. "I just don't see what's going to be fun about watching Regina's heart break." Jessica sighed patiently. "What fun would it be if nothing exciting happened? Face it, Liz, happy couples are boring. Didn't some famous novel start off about that?" "That was happy families, not happy couples," Elizabeth corrected her. "And Tolstoy didn't say they were boring, just that they were alike." Which, I wanted to get the first part in there to mention Jessica's mindset, but then I was just tickled that Elizabeth and Jessica are like remembering Tolstoy to each other.
I feel like that was the author who was like, I actually do read and write. I know about Tolstoy. Please, I have to put this in here. But no, as characters, I did find it funny that they dropped that.
Yeah. So Bruce comes to pick up Regina at her house, and she's already a little bit like frustrated with him. He hasn't really called her to say when he's coming. He's just been very distant, and she's worried in a sort of nondescript way. And Anjali, you mentioned already that when they get to the party, Jessica immediately asks Bruce to man the grill, which like separates Regina and Bruce, which seems sort of calculated to me. And Regina is just feeling awkward. And the book also describes that she has been feeling kind of shy and awkward ever since she got back from Switzerland. You know, she can hear for the first time, which must be super weird, although the book doesn't spend much time talking about it.
Yeah, that's like a medical phenomenon. I mean, what medical procedure did they do in Switzerland that could not be done in America?
Oh, you better believe they keep it real vague in the book.
That got her hearing back from, like, a condition that she was born with.
Yeah. one of a couple conditions we learn that she was born with, in fact, by the end of the book. Yeah, I don't know. It's amazing. I mean, I guess time, in theory, has passed as much as time does pass in these books, where they're always high school juniors. But we haven't seen Regina in a long time. Like, we haven't heard almost anything from Regina in quite some time, book-wise, like 10 books or something. Like, barely. So she might be partially adjusted by now, but we haven't really gotten to see it. I would like to read again. This is the moment when Regina is sitting at this table at the party, and Amy comes in and she puts the pieces together. And I really like felt this in my core, this like the pain of this particular moment. Okay. "Hey guys," a familiar voice called. Everyone looked up. It was Amy Sutton hurrying across the lawn, looking like a model in a white sundress and cotton espadrilles. Regina felt her pulse quicken. She didn't know Amy had been invited. It made sense, of course. Amy was a good friend of Jessica's. There was no reason to feel strange about it, she chided herself. It wasn't as if... But her thoughts were interrupted as she and the others watched Amy turn to look at Bruce, who was standing absolutely frozen by the barbecue. Their gazes locked and Amy smiled, a tiny, knowing smile that made Regina's stomach feel suddenly queasy. It lasted only an instant. Amy standing in a pool of late afternoon sunlight, eyes wide, staring at Bruce and Bruce staring back at her. Then the connection was broken. Amy came over to join them all at the table and Bruce, eyes downcast, fiddled with the grill. But Regina felt as though something devastating had happened. Bruce and Amy, she thought miserably. That was what had been bothering her all day. All week, in fact. That explained the peculiar premonitions she had been having. She was worried about Bruce and Amy.
Poor girl.
That's bad enough, right? I don't know how you guys were feeling reading that scene, but I was just like, oh, this already really sucks. Like, they couldn't, like, you know, keep their eyes in their eye pants or whatever long enough to, like, not telegraph to the whole room that they're having a fling.
Right. Keep it in your eye pants, Amy.
But then it gets much worse, right? Before it gets better. And that's when, like, nobody knows where Bruce and Amy are. And then Elizabeth and her boyfriend Jeffrey, like, spot Bruce behind a tree. The geography was a little fuzzy here.
There's a whole house. Like, they couldn't just go into a... Why did they have to hang out behind a tree where they could be very easily be spotted? And also, you know, keep it in your pants, guys.
Yeah, now it's like your pants, not your eye pants. This is now body pants.
Well, I feel like the book makes a big deal about explaining that Bruce used to be this player, and like, him being with a long-term girlfriend is so outside of his character. And so, I feel like it's just like old Bruce ways, you know, he's returning to who he used to be before Regina.
You're exactly right. So the book did its job, I guess, at getting that across. But, you know, Bruce and Regina had been so in love that everybody really thought Bruce was reformed. And, I mean, not to be cynical and to, like, take us out of the world of the book for a second, but I am going to do both of those things and say I think that a lot of why this book happens is so that they can have the old Bruce back. Because they want to bring back Playboy Bruce, because he was a fun character to have in their soap opera world for Sweet Valley. And they thought, well, how can we get Playboy Bruce back and teach kids a lesson about not using cocaine? And they did it all in this one devastating book. But we'll get to that.
I'll add that this book also maybe sent a message about not spreading rumors or something about rumors. I feel like something about rumors.
Don't have barbecues. Yeah. Barbecues lead to breakup. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of lessons.
Yeah. Like, oh, loose lips sink ships in this book, man. Yeah. But also, in this case, what we're having is a fallout of Elizabeth not having told Regina what happened, but also, I guess, because everybody else seems to already know about Amy and Bruce, and Regina's the only one who doesn't know. So what happens is, Elizabeth and Jeffrey are like, oh shit, Regina will be so hurt if she sees Bruce and Amy together, because that's wildly rude for them to be, you know, cavorting in front of her. And so Jeffrey goes out to, like, break it up and tell them, like, go get a room or something, and not here. And Elizabeth goes to talk to Regina, and then Regina, while Elizabeth is talking to her, sees anyway. She sees, and she also puts it together because Jeffrey's the one who's breaking it up, that Elizabeth only came over to distract her, and she puts all the pieces together right away.
Yeah, she puts a lot together in a very short amount of time.
She's a sharp cookie.
Yeah.
She's a smart girl. I'm going to steel myself for another big reading because this one has to go in because all the most dramatic parts got to go in. Okay. Are you ready? Okay, so Regina's really mad, so I got to work myself up to really mad. Okay. I got to get away from the mic a little bit. I thought you were my friend, she repeated, her voice so cold and angry that she sounded like a stranger. You all knew, she added furiously. You knew, and you let me come here and make a fool of myself. Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears. Regina, please let me try to explain. But it was too late. Regina stormed across the lawn, her black hair flying. Don't give me that look, she snapped at Bruce. I want your car keys. I'm taking the Pprsche and I'm going to drive it to my house. Come pick it up whenever you want. The keys will be in the mailbox. Her face was still ashen, and she was trembling with rage. I never want to speak to you again as long as I live. The whole backyard was so quiet Elizabeth could hear the ragged sound of Regina's breathing. No one dared move. I hate you, Regina cried brokenly, turning to Amy. I hate all of you, she shrieked. You make me feel as if I'm worthless, worse than worthless. Bruce took a deep breath. Regina, give me the car keys, she cried, her expression so angry Bruce didn't dare say no. Elizabeth hurried across the lawn and put her arms around the trembling girl. You're too upset to drive. Let Jeffrey or me take you back, she begged. Regina spun around to face Elizabeth, her eyes like ice. Thanks. I really appreciate your consideration, Elizabeth, she spat out sarcastically. From the way you've acted tonight, it's obvious how much you really care about my feelings. Elizabeth felt as if she'd been punched, but there was nothing she could do. She just had to stand there with the others, watching as Regina grabbed Bruce's car keys from his hand, raced across the lawn, and disappeared. The next sound Elizabeth heard was a car door slamming shut and the squeal of tires as Regina sped away. So Jessica got her fireworks.
Yep. I had two thoughts as you were reading that, which, by the way, that was great. Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome emotion put into all of it.
I'm feeling it.
One was that, that scene definitely reminded me of like high school and just those misunderstandings and either not doing the right thing, not telling your friends something, and then just like how quickly we turn to like anger and sarcasm and then just, speeding away. Like, no, I appreciate your concern for me and leaving. Like, I feel like that was a very, especially among girls, if you didn't do right by your girls, that was something that would happen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that comes back to bite her later, right? Because Regina then she cuts herself off. She feels betrayed by everybody. And so when people start seeing her hang out with Justin Belson, who she's starting to think is actually kind of a nice guy, she is just like, well, why do you suddenly care about me? Like, maybe these friends are better than you guys,
Right.
Yeah, I think that scene illustrates a few things that I find interesting about this book. And one is that the book seems to be very occupied with people's hair and and eye color.
Yeah.
It's always
Yes.
Whenever a new character is described, or even a character we know is described, it's always, there seems to be this, like, the color of their eyes and a description of their hair.
Yeah.
And in the scene, which was so dramatic, they're like, and her black hair was flying in the wind as she walked away, and I feel like that's a big part of these books. And then also, like, if you get caught cheating on somebody, you're not going to give that person your car keys. I felt like that was a little glossed over, that she was just like, I'm taking your Pprsche, and like grabs the keys out of his hand. I'd be like, no, you need to simmer down before you start speeding around in my extremely expensive car.
Maybe that's like that actually brings me to a second thought, but also maybe that's like a guilt sort of like, I really did screw up.
Yeah, here, take the car.
Yeah, just like, here, take, we should definitely be, as a society, like, I would totally take a guilt Pprsche. I'd be like, you give me your car keys now. So maybe he was just like, oh man, I really screwed up. I feel super bad. And he was also her ride. So I don't think that she wants to be in the car with him, but
this
just
is
get out of there.
This is like pre-Uber, pre-cell phones. You have to remember all that.
Which is wild, because there are definitely times in here where I'm like, just call the cell phone, just use your cell phone. I'm like, oh man, no, this is pre. But
yeah, absolutely.
Another just completely related to the car and just random thought that I had here was, I want to start checking rich people's mailboxes for car keys. Because that doesn't seem like a safe place to put his Pprsche keys. Just like, come pick it up, whatever. Your keys are going to be in the mailbox.
That's how
also, now she's told the whole junior class, basically, that that's where Bruce's car keys are.
That's how you get bling rings. That's how you get bling rings.
I'm surprised that Jessica didn't conspire to steal Bruce's Pprsche, because she's got no love lost with Bruce, like, you know. But I thought it was pretty baller of Regina to demand his car. I was see what you're getting at, Greg, but I was too caught up in how excited I was that she was like making demands and being like telling him what a jerk he was to think it was unrealistic.
Yeah.
Is this really just so fucked up? Like, it's like the idea that he would go make out with another girl while his girlfriend is at the party. Even if they were not, like, deeply in love like they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I feel like at the end of this, we might have to ask ourselves the question, who actually killed Regina? Is it Bruce's fault? Is it Buzz's fault? Is it Jason? I mean, or Justin's fault. We have so many, people here that are contributing to this.
Very true. Well, speaking of your comment, though, going back to the hair and eye thing, that's also the way that Molly Hecht is described, right? They talk about her like short blonde flyaway hair, and Molly Hecht is this girl who is supposed to be kind of bad news, and she and Justin Belson used to date, and Justin has told Regina. I guess we can add that on the Saturday after this party, Regina is like home alone and all bummed out. And so she calls Justin, who's been calling the house to kind of try to make plans with Regina. And Nicholas, Regina's brother, and Regina's parents are already starting the like, hey, don't hang out with that guy. We hear that he's bad news kind of bandwagon. We hear, one of the first things we hear about Molly Hecht is that Molly Hecht is trouble. My cousin Mimi saw her at a party in LA last weekend that was busted by the police. 2 college guys got arrested for having cocaine. That's Amy saying that. And Jessica says, you think Molly and Justin are on drugs? Amy shrugged. I honestly don't know. And to tell you the truth, Jess, I just don't care.
Spoken like an Amy.
Yeah. But yeah, Molly Hecht is described as like a little blonde, and I don't know how much we have to go through the blow by blow of Regina and Justin like becoming deeper friends, of Elizabeth trying to warn off Regina and it kind of failing. But
I actually I mean, in that montage of, if we're going to montage through it, I did enjoy the scene where he takes her to the bar and is kind of like, dipping Regina's toe into the pool of being a bad kid, a little bit. It was interesting. Mm-hmm. I like the dynamic of that scene where she kind of was like, ooh, should I be here? Should I not be here? But she kind of liked it. And I thought that was an interesting part of it.
Yeah. And I think the book really goes to great lengths to make it clear that Regina is not very deeply dabbling in the idea of becoming a bad kid. She is fascinated by how different his world is from hers. And she thinks that there's something more to him than other people see. And she's really annoyed that her brother, her parents, Bruce, now Elizabeth, that everybody keeps on telling her, watch out, like, don't hang out with those kids, like, they're bad news. Because she's like, I can handle myself. Like, just because I'm with people that are interested in doing bad things doesn't mean I'm going to do bad things. She's like, come on, cut me some slack.
Right.
It also seemed to me that as she and Justin are getting closer, kind of seems like she wants to save him or something. Like, I think she said somewhere in there, it's like she wants to make a difference in his life and, make some sort of an impact. And she wasn't able to do that with Bruce, but it just all flashed to me like she sees Justin as somebody that she can swoop in and save and put her attention there instead of her being in more of her woe is me headspace.
Yeah. Well, here's a passage about that, actually, that I thought was interesting because it also dabbles in the concept of privilege in a way that, even though in 1987 we didn't really have that language popularly. Bruce came from a family every bit as wealthy as the Morrows. She and Bruce had big allowances, access to their parents' credit cards, their own expensive cars to drive. They might have had different value systems. Bruce felt much more entitled to luxuries than Regina did, for example, but they really were alike. Whereas Justin definitely appealed to Regina, and she guessed that might have something to do with the fact that he seemed rebellious. He didn't care about conventions. He was on academic probation because school bored him so much that he just skipped. Regina couldn't help admiring that. She, who had studied hard every night of her life, always got good grades and would never in a million years miss a class without permission. She thought Justin was amazingly daring. When she compared him to Bruce, he seemed even more daring. What risks had Bruce ever taken? What hardships had he overcome? Bruce had had life handed to him on a silver platter, but Justin had suffered. Regina thought he was the most romantic guy she had ever met. More like a character in a book than a real person.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's not to say she doesn't know what her feelings are for him, and she realizes that he's in love with Molly Hecht still. So, and she tells him, like, you know, you shouldn't just end it with somebody because you think that they're in trouble. I don't know. It's weird.
It seems like both of their feelings for each other are sort of confused and muddled here, because I think at some point he says to her that he has a bit of a crush on Regina, but he definitely still admits that there's something still, like Molly still is a part of his life and lingers, and I think she says to him, like, you need to, you know, give Molly a fair shot or something before, if there's any chance of anything happening with us.
Yeah. One thing the book makes very clear is that Molly Hecht she's not a bad person. She's not a bad girl. It's that horrible Jan Brown, which is a brand new character, Jan Brown is.
I mean, every encounter, every description of Jan Brown just makes her seem like the pure evil character of any, you know, high school drama, anything.
Yeah.
Like, they are all bad.
Yeah, they say that she's, like, insane. And she's new. She's a new character. She's just a bad girl. And Jan Brown is really excited because Molly's parents are going out of town, and they have this big party every year. And, worse yet, this guy named Buzz is going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And Regina and Justin get invited to the party because when Molly comes over to tell Justin about it, Regina's sitting there. Okay. So there's this guy named Buzz, and it seems like he's really bad news. And the fact that, like, his mere presence, like the suggestion of his presence at this party that Molly's having is like a dark omen.
Yeah. It's like the worst thing in the world that Buzz might show up to this party, from what it sounds like, according to Justin. And then I think even later, when Bruce and Amy are talking to her cousin, they're like, oh yeah, you know, this guy Buzz is bad news, and he might show up to this party that we heard about. And it's just like, oh my goodness, this guy is going to unleash some sort of terror.
They do a really good job of seeding Buzz throughout the book as this, you know,
he's really scary. Yeah.
They even describe him as mean looking.
Yeah. Let me see. I have a description of Buzz here, actually. So this is Mimi talking to Bruce and Amy, because they've finally been able to nail her down for this, like, interview that they're doing for their school project, which is real. So his name is Buzz Jackson, and Amy says, wait, who is Buzz Jackson? Buzz, Mimi said, happens to be the biggest cocaine dealer at my college right now. He's bad news, she added, and there just isn't that much more to say about him. But she does go on. She says...
Not to say more about him.
Yeah. She says, he's my age, maybe a year older, a skinny, sort of mean-looking guy who's been dealing drugs since junior high. Mimi laughed bitterly. Let's just say that now it's a full-time occupation. I guess the bitter laugh is more like, let's just say that now It's a full-time obligation. I'm not doing it right.
No.
Let's just say that now it's a full-time occupation. Buzz latches on to people like Jan and Molly, basically okay kids who have the cash or can get the cash somehow to become steady customers. So this is also planting the seeds of like, kids, this is what drug dealers do. Watch out for Buzz Jacksons in your life.
Yeah, I would love a Buzz Jackson spinoff. It's great. I mean, since junior high, right? So since before high school, he's been dealing cocaine. Well, how old are you in junior high? What age is that?
12.
So from 12 years old, this guy, first off, has a cocaine supply, which is incredible.
It's the 80s, Greg.
Yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. And he has not been caught or put away. Like, he is out there throughout the entirety of high school, and he's the biggest cocaine. He is the Scarface of this girl's college, right? Like, she says he is the biggest cocaine dealer at my college, right? Not much to say about him, but I would love to know more about Buzz and his Buzz Jackson. It's a great name. He sounds like a musician I would listen to too.
Well, speaking of his name, actually, I highlighted this because Bruce asks, like, is his name really Buzz? Because Mimi answers and says, I think he's got some first name that he hates, like William. Buzz is a nickname. You can probably guess where he got it. No.
I think that means like when you take drugs, you get a buzz.
You get a buzz?
Yeah, that's what
I think of alcohol as giving you a buzz.
Or like coffee.
High. Or coffee, yeah. Like you get high with drugs. Like what is?
Yeah, maybe he started, slinging lattes, and that's how he got his name in junior high.
Well, this had an extra layer for me because my grandfather's nickname was Buzz. Everybody called him Buzz. So
that's what I think of. I think of a grandparent when I think of Buzz. Like, oh, look at Buzz. It seems like a sweet old grandparent. So that when they say you can probably guess where he got it, I can't guess where he got it.
And was William a stupid name in the 80s? I feel like
that's just some stupid name like William. Oh, Buzz.
What's Egbert's name?
Winston. Yeah, Winston can be Winston, but William's got to be Buzz. Oh my gosh. So Regina, I think we can skip to the night of the party.
Yeah, let's go there.
The night of the party at Molly Heck's house, Regina doesn't super want to go, but she's gonna go to support Justin. Because I don't know. She feels like that's her job now, I guess. He's her friend.
Is there also a little sense of sticking it to her brothers? Because her brother is constantly like, yo, I'm going to, doesn't the brother tell the parents about her relationship? And
yeah.
Do you feel like that's part of it where she's like, I'm going to go to this party to kind of prove to all the people who are saying I shouldn't go that I can handle myself?
I think so much so that if she had not gone to the party, it would have been like a betrayal of Justin, because it would have been like she was believing everything that her family had said about him on some level.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I wonder if it was, yes, partially this, supporting this new friend of hers that maybe she feels like she understands better than other people do and wanting to give him a chance, but then also kind of trying to prove to other people that they're wrong about him. And because it's like Bruce calls her up at one point when he finds out about Buzz kind of going to the party, and he calls up Regina and he's like, you really shouldn't go to this party. And then Elizabeth calls up Regina and is like, yeah, I'm really worried about you going to this party. I wonder if all those people hadn't said to her, oh man, you really shouldn't go to this party, if she would have maybe just said, you know what, Justin, you're my friend, but maybe I don't want to go to this party with you. It almost seemed like she was going to just, to stick it to everyone, to show them, like, you guys are wrong about Justin. He's fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to be okay.
And I can control myself. Like, I'm,
That's the thing, Regina, her entire life, she's been told she's delicate. There's this thing with the hearing and these other issues. And I think that she is like, you know what? I'm not, I can take care of myself.
And unfortunately, She's wrong.
She's very wrong.
Yeah, very
She's
wrong.
so wrong.
Oh boy.
So when word gets out about Buzz specifically, like through gossip travels fast. I guess this time for good in a way, although it comes to not. But Jessica gives Elizabeth the idea to call Nicholas Morrow and tell him about Buzz being at this party. Like, there's going to be drugs at this party Regina's going to. And then this crazy nonsense happens with Nicholas where he can't find his wallet and he leaves the house without it. And then he speeds on his way to get to Molly's house, which he doesn't know exactly where it is, except it's on Redwood Street. And he gets pulled over, and then for speeding, and he doesn't have his license, and he gets taken into the police station.
Yeah, I think really good tension building there, right? Like, if he could just get to the party, he could save, like, something's gonna happen. We keep cutting back to his, like, he's like, I'm trying to tell you. Like, and the cops are like, save it for the jury.
Yeah.
Well, and the really fucked up thing is that it sets him up to save the day perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't, exactly. So, what did you guys think of this party at Molly Hecht's house?
Oh, man. Well, I think first, with all the tension that was built up, and then I think somewhere in the beginning where she gets into the party and it's, like, super dim and just candle lights or something, and I'm thinking, like, oh my god, is this like an Eyes Wide Shut party? What is this?
That's a different book, but I like it. I like where your head's at.
This tension was built up. But yeah, it just kind of seems like it's dark and a bunch of kids, including Molly's younger brother, who is, I think he's supposed to be pretty young.
Yeah,
We just know he's under 16, so 15, 14? Yeah, like, eventually Buzz, like, burst into the party. Like, I know that listeners, you can't see this, but Greg and Anjali can. But he bursts in, like, with his arms wide, and he's like, hey, let's get this party started. Like, verbatim.
he definitely brings the high to Sweet Valley High.
Well, and like, Ty, the Molly's brother, like, rushes into this bedroom where Regina and Molly and Jan are. Regina's trying to leave. Like, she's trying to get her coat. And they're smoking marijuana in there, and they're giving Regina a hard time. Like, they say, what's the matter? Haven't you ever smelled dope before? And Regina says, of course I have. So, but anyway, the point is that Ty rushes into this room and is like, Buzz has got the stuff out. You better hurry up and get some before it's all gone. It's like,
Yeah.
Really?
bad. The stuff.
He knows his supply and demand. It's simple economics. But the party definitely, you can see her sort of slipping into that peer pressure.
Yeah. Well,
She's drinking beer. That's part of it.
she drinks beer, which I guess the book also makes it at a point to mention that that's not something she does. Like, she does not drink alcohol.
She doesn't have a beer at Kelly's when they go to Kelly's earlier.
Right? She has Coke. Not the kind of Coke that's going to be at this party, but like,
Right.
Oh, but that was foreshadowing when Regina drinks a Coke at Kelly's earlier. And Justin doesn't give her a hard time about it.
No.
As soon as this cocaine comes out... Oh, we should also say that Jan has given Regina a really hard time about, like, trying to steal Justin away from them. And, like, she's trying to steal Molly's boyfriend, even though they're not together. Like, she's really aggressive, and Regina feels very uncomfortable, which is probably fueling her, like, beer drinking. It's like, I guess Justin is, like, away with Molly somewhere. Like, she really wants to get out of there, but in the meantime, she's drinking. She's feeling the peer pressure, like you're saying.
She's feeling the peer pressure. She's in a new environment that she's never been in before with this new friend who she's trying to help and be there for, and then she's being told that she's, someone who steals boyfriends when her boyfriend was just kind of stolen away from her. And so in her mind, it seems like it goes through the conflict where she's like, is she like Amy? No, she's not like Amy, but she can understand why Molly would look so hurt in seeing Regina and Justin together, and she's like trying to explain, like, we're just friends, and then she's having all these epiphanies about how, I guess nobody can really steal a boyfriend away if a relationship is not as stable anyway. She seems to be having a lot of realizations at that party, and so no wonder she needs to have a drink.
Yeah.
Well, and that started before she even went to the party, right? Because she writes a mysterious letter that we don't know what it is. She feels bad about snapping at Elizabeth. She writes a letter and puts it in the mail. We don't know to who. But she's starting to like really like realize that Bruce and her relationship was probably had its own problems, like you're saying. So great. She's having an epiphany. Perfect. Wonderful. So she goes downstairs and she's trying to leave, but Justin is like, well, I'm going to read the scene. Well, am I going to read the scene? No, I'm not going to read it because I want to read the scene where she actually does the cocaine. But I'll read a moment of it. So when Regina's trying to leave the party, she ends up not leaving because Justin, he doesn't want to leave Molly behind at her party because he's afraid that she's going to get into something even worse than cocaine. Like Buzz has been trying to get her to try heroin, which is, even more shocking to Regina. She's like receiving shock upon shock at this party. But there's a line that I thought was kind of funny. Just it's so nefarious and like after school special. It says, Regina blushed. She still felt woozy and she really wanted to get outside, but now that appeared impossible. Come over and sit down, Jan added and grinned at the others. Don't you think Regina needs a little something to pep her up? She looks kind of pale. Speaking of pale, Buzz said, taking a small packet of white powder out of his bag, would you all just take a look at this? So everybody's like looking with like awed reverence at Buzz's bag of cocaine.
Great transition, Buzz. He was just waiting for someone to say anything drug related.
So Regina doesn't want to do cocaine, but she's scandalized. Like when she sees it laid out, they give her shit for like, oh, haven't you ever seen a line of coke before? And she's like, what does it do to you? And, can it hurt you? Can you get hooked on it? And all the kids are like, is that what they're teaching you now? You can get addicted to cocaine. So she starts to think like, this seems pretty harmless. It's just a little powder.
Just a little powder.
Yeah. So here it is. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to read it. So Regina snorts a line of coke through a $20 bill. At first, all Regina felt was a sudden sharp burning sensation in her nose. That was it. She felt exactly the way she had before she snorted the coke. Only maybe a little less scared. Suddenly it seemed idiotic to have cared. Have her do another line, Molly said. Sometimes you don't feel anything the first time. No way, Justin argued. Have her do another line, Molly said again. Her voice sounded like iron. Regina couldn't move. She just kept thinking how stupid she'd been to think this was a big deal. This is great, Regina said, grinning happily as Jan held her head down. Sniff up, baby. You need another hit, Jan said. Buzz, help me. I just want to point out that Ty Hecht was worried earlier that they were going to run out of cocaine. So this seems like a real waste of cocaine here.
Lots of back in there. I mean, Jan is holding her head down.
Yeah.
Like, that's intense. And Molly's like, iron voice says, make her do another.
Okay, so continuing on. Regina saw her own face as she leaned back down over the mirror. A long line of white powder zoomed up beneath her. Snort it, Jan commanded, pushing her face down toward the glass. Regina tried to protest, but she couldn't. The next thing she knew, the inside of her nose felt like fire, and her heart began to pound. Wow, she said weakly, lifting up her head. I guess I'm really kind of high. Everyone laughed, and so did Regina. She felt so weird. She felt as if she could do absolutely anything, as if she were the most powerful person in the whole world. But something was wrong with her chest. Her heart was beating really fast, as if she had been running. She couldn't really breathe. What's that noise? She said thickly to Justin and reached out weakly for his arm. What noise? He demanded, still grinning at her. Beating, Regina said, like drums. Hey, I think she's going to be sick, Molly said, anxious. Why is her face so pale? Like drums, Regina repeated. Her pulse is really fast, Justin said, hand on her wrist. That must be what she means about drums. I think she's feeling her heartbeat. Get her to lie down. She'll be okay, Buzz said nonchalantly. He handed the rolled-up bill to Jan. I think I'm sick, Regina said, struggling for control. Her face was ashen now, and it was almost impossible to understand her. My chest hurts, she added, putting her hand over her heart. Is that supposed to happen? Frowning, Justin turned to Molly and Jan. Turn down the music, he ordered. She needs to lie down for a second, that's all. He picked Regina up in his arms and then carried her over to the couch. Her breathing was ragged and her face was ghostly pale. Get some wet paper towels, Justin ordered Ty. I don't know what that's about. He leaned over Regina, his own face blanching as he listened to her tortured breathing. Molly, he said a minute later, call 911. I think she's passed out. Don't be an idiot, Buzz hollered. You're gonna call the cops? We've got to do something, Justin said grimly. There's something wrong with her, Buzz. Look at the way she's breathing. Wait a minute. Someone's at the door, Ty said, running to answer it. Everyone froze as the door burst open and 2 policemen raced into the room, with Nicholas Morrow right behind them. End of the chapter.
Yeah, pretty intense stuff there.
Yeah. It's really so much dark. It's so much like they have this kind of direct like discussion of like the act of like snorting cocaine. It's so outside of the realm of anything that's happened in these books up to this point.
Do you think the author did any research? Personal research. And she was like, man, I am so high. Get me paper towels.
Yeah. She was like Regina. She was like, I'm going to go to one of these parties. Let's see what they do. Okay, mirror. Okay, $20 bill. That must be how you always do it. Okay.
Yeah, again, I had no expectation of what these books were going in, but definitely was surprised that they, went that far with it. And it wasn't just like, oh, the drugs are there. And Regina was like, I'm out of here. You're different than I thought.
Well, I feel like the book basically just taught you how to do cocaine also.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a perfect instruction manual. So,
although maybe if you're like a kid that's trying to be cool like Regina and like not give in to peer pressure, if you already know how the mechanics of doing cocaine work, maybe it'll be easier to say no. Because you're just like, oh, yeah, that stuff, whatever. Yeah. Oh, you guys use a $20 bill? I never snort coke out of less than $100 bill. And then they don't have a $100 bill. So you're like, guess I can't do it. Kids listening, I hope you're not listening, but if you are, that's how you refuse cocaine. Mm-hmm. Although if they call your bluff and have a $100 bill, then you're in trouble.
That's not good. Yeah.
Then you have to run.
Then leave immediately.
I'm surprised Buzz wasn't more help. Like, he's definitely been, since he's been doing this so long, he's had to have seen overdoses in the past.
Yeah. Why didn't he have one of those kits, like... I guess that wouldn't help. Sorry, I was thinking about Pulp Fiction, but that's the opposite. That's a down. That's like after a downer, not an upper. I don't think a shot of adrenaline would have helped Regina, who we learn is shortly after this, we learn has had a heart attack.
Yeah. Because
she had an undiagnosed heart, or she had a heart murmur since birth. She knew about that, but she didn't know that it's very rare cases. This is how cocaine can affect your heart.
Yeah, so it's also teaching kids if you don't have a heart murmur, you're probably going to make it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of what it's teaching kids, like, so Regina does not immediately die. And I had highlighted this scene where Bruce and Elizabeth, who Regina asks for when she can talk to Nicholas when he gets there. And she tells him, like, it's nobody's fault. I want to see Bruce and Elizabeth. And so he calls them to the hospital. Very crazy. I highlighted the scene where they find out that she's died, but I kind of don't want to read it because I feel like of any like triggering thing in this whole series, this scene is very triggering in terms of like bad feelings of like, I don't know, like hospital dread, that waiting room feeling. It's so terrible. So I'm not going to read it. Gladiators, you already know that Regina dies. And now we have to live with that. And one of the things that Elizabeth thinks to herself in her anger after Regina dies is this. The injustice was so dreadful that she could barely stand it. Why Regina? What had Regina ever done to deserve this kind of terrible end? And I read that sentence and I was like, yeah, Sweet Valley High series. Yeah, Francine. Like, what has Regina done? This poor girl. She's overcome adversity. She's been sweet and nice. She's been one of the good rich kids. She cares about people. We care about her. Why did she have to die like this?
She's already been through so much. She was held hostage for a period of time in her life.
Yeah. Have Caroline Pierce die of a cocaine overdose accidentally. Like, nobody will miss Caroline. I mean, I'm sorry, Caroline, but it's just like one more gossip. Like, that was the only thing you had going for you, and now you're cured of it. So, like,
I didn't
Amy.
see. Yeah,
Amy. I'd be cool with Amy.
Oh my god.
I thought first off when they went to the party, I thought Mimi was going to be the one who overdosed, teaching Regina.
Really?
Yeah, teaching Regina a valuable lesson.
Molly?
What did I say? Molly.
You said Mimi.
Yes, Molly. Molly. I thought Molly was going to be the one.
If Mimi overdosed, that would really be like her research has gone terribly wrong.
And then I thought that Justin was going to be like, oh no, somebody else close to me has died. And then like they would kind of in that grief kind of get together, right? I didn't think they were going to kill off a main character. And then when they were in the hospital, I was thinking like, okay, like everyone's going to come, they're going to learn their lesson, Bruce is going to feel bad, they're going to get back together. No, it just kept going downhill. So it was very, very shocking for me to see this main character kind of actually die in the book.
Yeah, well, it was shocking for me the first time, and it was shocking again the second time. What happens is that the school calls like an assembly to kind of set the record straight about what happened to Regina, and this is the scene where we're really getting the like, okay, kids, like this is why you need to learn not to do drugs. Like all of your friends at Sweet Valley High have resolved to, stay sober and straight, and you should too. So, I didn't know you could die from cocaine, Caroline Pierce said miserably. My older sister has friends who claim it's great stuff. Yeah, I'll bet, Winston said unhappily. I know one thing, I'm never gonna try it. Me neither, Lila seconded. I know some of my dad's colleagues have kids who use coke all the time. Boy, I'm sure glad I never wanted to. She shuddered. Elizabeth felt numb as she walked beside Jeffrey and Enid into the auditorium. She wished there was some way Regina could have known in advance how dangerous the drug was. It seemed terrible that they were all finding out now, only because Regina had become a victim. I'm reading Little Women right now, like I'm just about to finish it, and Louisa May Alcott does this totally baller thing where she'll just quit talking in the world of the book and start talking right to the reader. Like, this is the lesson that I'm trying to get across to you, reader. Like, what do you think? And then at the end of the speech, she'll be like, you're probably bored of this sermon by now, but let's return to our characters and I feel like Kate William, in air quotes, could have totally done that at this point. Like, reader, don't you want to resolve not to do cocaine as well? Or any drug for that matter. Mm-hmm. So Elizabeth is feeling really guilty. Everybody, Elizabeth, Bruce, maybe not Amy so much, but everybody is feeling so guilty about being responsible for Regina's death. Elizabeth feels absolved a little bit by the letter that she receives from Regina. Oh, the letter was for Elizabeth. And it totally tells her, like, I'm sorry I snapped at you. I know that we're friends. Friends forever.
Yeah, that really turns the knife there at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Anjali, you had wanted to say something about, like, investigating who killed Regina. Who's responsible?
Oh, I think Greg had mentioned that too. Yeah, of like, who's...
Yeah, if we have to draw the line here, who's really to blame for the death? Is it Buzz? Is it Bruce? Is it Amy for starting this whole thing off?
What about Jan?
Is it Jan for holding, literally holding her head down?
Like, Jan
it is literally Jan
holding her head into the cocaine and was...
Although Molly did say the thing with, like, an iron voice, like, have her do another line.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was it Justin? Justin brought her, like, if it wasn't for him, she never would have gone to that party.
Yeah, I was also surprised that Justin didn't, like, protect her a little bit more and wasn't like, hey, guys, how about...
Lay off.
Yeah, how about you leave her alone and don't make her do cocaine, because he obviously doesn't like Buzz either, and I was surprised that he didn't, like, look out for her a little bit more.
Yeah, although I will say that as far as the first line is concerned, Regina does say that she wants to do it. I mean, she wouldn't have gotten there without the peer pressure, but she does say, like, I want to do this. I want to try it. But, yeah, no, Jan is the one who is, like, holding the smoking gun here, I think. But, I mean, I guess Regina's the one who went to the party and snorted the cocaine. How about the cocaine, the people that make the cocaine? How about, like, the government?
Oh, so it's a government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was two separate thoughts. I'm not suggesting that the government makes the cocaine.
Don't they?
I'm just looking for someone to blame, you guys. Now, I blame Bantam Books for killing Regina Morrow. So they have this really, really heart-wrenching funeral at which we have the saddest ever Collins Watch 2020. Mr. Collins appears to make a speech where he proves exactly why everybody loves him so much, and it's not because he's sexy, and his strawberry blonde sexiness is not even so much as mentioned. He was Regina's favorite teacher and was loved and respected by everyone. Elizabeth listened eagerly as he began to talk about Regina. Somehow she felt she could derive strength from what he said. Many of us in this room today were lucky enough to know Regina Morrow, he said in a loud, strong voice. Some of us were lucky enough to be her friend. A very few were lucky enough to have loved her and to have been loved by her in return. But I think we all share this afternoon in a profound feeling of loss. It is occasionally claimed that young people have no understanding of suffering, that they are exempt from tragedy. Your loss this past week shows how false such a claim is. The truth is, no one is exempt from tragedy. To be human is to be susceptible to pain. Silence followed as Mr. Collins cleared his throat. My job here at Sweet Valley High is to teach English literature. I suppose if literature has a lesson for us, it's how to learn from the lessons life teaches us. How to endure.
Oof.
It was like, oh, whoa. I was struck by it. Then I went back and read it, and I thought, I don't know if literature has a lesson for us. It's how to learn from the lessons life teaches us is quite, on second blush, is quite as profound as I thought it was the first time I read it through. He uses the word lesson twice.
Yeah, it's like a songwriter who can't quite make a rhyme work, and they're like, let me just...
Or it's also a bit of a syllogism. It's like, if literature has a lesson for us, it's that lessons are lessons, and we need to learn
And literature
lessons.
is... literature. I have a question. Does, beyond the book, do Bruce and Amy stay together? Are they bonded by this tragedy? Are they torn asunder by it?
I don't believe so. I think Bruce is chastened for a while and then he moves on, and that's an important book where he moves on. He gets his own book again. We find out that Justin and Molly haven't even talked to each other. Justin and Molly are new characters in this book, and they're the ones that the book decides to follow into the next chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, because at the end, I guess, they say something about how no one has seen Justin and Molly at school since Regina died, which is probably, for their sake, probably better, because everyone is pretty pissed at both of them.
Yeah, people don't really know what really happened, and they don't really know Justin either, right? So Bruce has said that he wants to kill Justin. Like, he clearly blames Justin. So what did you guys think of this Edna St. Vincent Millay mic drop at the end of the book? This poem that Nicholas reads, that Regina's brother reads.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't remember. I'd have to look at it again.
Yeah, look at it. There's something that, though, is so perfect, I think, of this book. Like, I'm sorry. I apologize. It's about time for me to apologize to you both for having put you through this very painful volume. But I'm glad that you are the ones joining me for this deep dive into On the Edge, a seminal part of the Sweet Valley High, or if not my favorite to read or revisit. But we all met basically as a part of writing group and poetry group that we did a few times.
Yeah.
It wasn't expressly for poetry, but there was a lot of poetry happening in that group. So
yeah, I
love that this ends with a poem. I
enjoyed that it was included. I don't know if it was wholly appropriate, if I remember correctly. Did you find it to be appropriate?
Yeah, I had to read it a couple times. It's kind of a downer. It's basically like, it sucks that everybody has to die, is basically the message that I was taking away from the poem. Like, it's hard, but it is, I think it harkens back to what Mr. Collins says about kind of persevering, facing the challenges of life. It's because she says repeatedly in this poem, I am not resigned. It's like, death comes for all of us, but I have not resigned myself to death.
Oh, yeah. No, it is. It's great. I'm glad that that's in there. If for no other reason than it gets Sweet Valley High readers, interested in poetry. Yeah. Do any of the other books deal with drug use, death, is this kind of an outlier as the...
I mean, up to this point, there's only been like one guy who was taking pills, and that was kind of crazy. But I think we're going to go there more as the series goes on, and we get further into the 90s, and it's the books become a little bit trashier, for lack of a better term. But a lot of that is in an area where I actually haven't read the books yet. So I only gleaned this from the covers or from what I know. But mostly, like, talking about drinking and pills is, like, as far as the books have gone.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a very important question for you both that we ask in every episode of Sweet Valley Diaries, which is, each of you individually, are you a Jessica or an Elizabeth?
I'm definitely an Elizabeth. Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, the one who would try to reach out to a friend and not care so much about the gossip and sensationalizing things, and possibly make a mistake, but, you know, all with good intentions. I don't know, Jessica seems a little bit, like, for me, Elizabeth seems a little bit more well-intentioned than the two.
I think that's an accurate assessment. But now that puts a lot of pressure on you, Greg, to answer honestly. I don't know.
Oh, I'm a Jessica.
Yeah? Would it surprise you to learn that you are not the first married couple of guests on this program to be part Elizabeth, part Jessica?
I think everybody's got a little Jessica in them and a little Elizabeth, but I don't know. It's hard to say. Yeah, again, this is the only book I've read, but, you know, Jessica likes to stir shit up and see what happens, and you know, that's exciting.
Is that what you do?
I don't know if I stir shit up, but I like I'm as a writer and filmmaker and stuff, I like to see where the drama goes. So
okay, I appreciate that. I'm thinking right now, since this is extra long, about making this like one mega episode to be like the season finale rather than doing like an extra drama. So I wanted to ask you guys something, or maybe I just wanted to talk about it myself. Something that I was thinking about during this book was this video that I saw in health class when I was in 7th or 8th grade. In Mr. LaPose's class, Westchester Middle School, there was this video that we watched. We watched all sorts of videos that were trying to teach us lessons in health class. And one of them was about these two kids, like young kids, that go rummaging around in like an older brother's, like under his bed. And they find cocaine there, and they snort it, and one of them dies because he has an undiagnosed heart problem. And I think I have not forgotten it to this day, because I feel like it actually like was very effective for me. Like, I have always been sort of scared of hard drugs. Like, and I think that it was stuff like that. It was in my head, like, oh, if you go down this path, it's like dark and brooding and death and like scary music and like all those scary commercials from the 80s, the like, this is your brain on drugs. And like, I learned it by watching you, Dad. I was wondering if either of you had any kind of like memories from when you were younger about like anti-drug campaigns of the, you know, the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, I remember Dare coming to my school a lot and doing, I mean, I feel like it was multiple times a year there would be some sort of talk or discussion around the dangers of drugs, and I vaguely remember actually a person coming in. Like, I don't even remember the video, but I remember a person coming in through Dare and talking about their experience of how drugs, and I think they were talking specifically, they were going down the slippery slope argument of how they started, you know, with alcohol, which turned to marijuana, which turned to cocaine, which turned to heroin and meth, and then now he'd like been in rehab, and I remember that affecting me a lot. And then just kind of learning like, oh gosh, with cocaine, there's like, you're gonna feel like your heart is beating out of your chest and it's gonna burn, and that I just, so much of it was like, this will feel really uncomfortable and then really good and then it will ruin your life. And for me, I was just stopped cold with the this will feel uncomfortable part.
Sure.
I'm like, oh gosh.
I remember a video that they showed us, and it was more about, it was around drinking, where a bunch of kids got together and, you know, they're drinking, and it's basically like Bud Light. You know, it's like silver cans of beer that are unlabeled. And one of the kids thinks it's a great idea to jump off of his deck, like his second story deck, and he like lands and dies. He either dies or he like severely injures himself or something like that. And I remember thinking, like that image of the guy falling off of that deck always stuck in my head. But I don't remember seeing any, you know, really hardcore, like, don't do cocaine, don't do heroin, until I was maybe in, like, high school where they started doing.
Well, I feel like a lot of that stuff was also very vague about what drug they were talking about. Yeah. Like, the this is your brain on drugs thing was just about drugs in general. It was not specific.
That ad just made me hungry because that egg looked so good. That was like breakfast. Yeah, I don't remember any commercial. We had Dare as well. We had a cop come in, and he had like a suitcase full of drugs, and again, very vague. He was like, "These are drugs, and they'll kill you," and then like snap the case closed, and you're like, "Oh." The book being like an instruction manual for how to do it. I think so much of that early education, and I don't know if this is true for everybody, but it was, like you said, extremely vague. It didn't say exactly what it was or how it works or what it did to you, just that you shouldn't do it. And I wonder if that was the right way to go. I mean, I wonder if, you know, like you said, if Regina had known more about it, if she could say, like, no, I know what this is and I don't want to do it.
Maybe so. Well, it's been so tremendous having you both on the program. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Well, I guess, the last thing I'll say is that the book did end, they did a good job ending the book, making me want to read the next book.
Oh, well, it's actually perfectly appropriate at this juncture for one or both of you to read the teaser for book 41, which also doubles as a teaser for season 5 of Sweet Valley Diaries, coming at you at a future date, gladiators.
Like, Justin and Molly are at that memorial, and I think, like, Elizabeth or somebody sees Molly go up to Justin, and she tries to talk to him, because of course we find out somehow that Molly and Justin haven't spoken either since Regina died. So she tries to speak to Justin, and he just does not want to listen to her. He like jerks away from her touch, and he just leaves. Like, he does not want to talk to her. And then at the end it says, "Will anyone in Sweet Valley ever talk to Molly Hecht again? Find out in Sweet Valley High, number 41, Outcast." And I'm like, what?
Like, oh no, what? Poor Molly.
I mean, I don't feel super bad for her, but I do want to know if he's going to talk to her.
Yeah, like that specifically. Absolutely.
I kind of want to know what's going on in their heads. Is she going to stop doing drugs too? Is she going to clean up her act?
Yeah, she's got to break away from that awful Jan Brown.
So it definitely, it did a good job making me feel like, but I can only imagine back when, we didn't have the satisfaction of, like, when a Netflix series comes out, you can just binge watch the whole season or something. Yeah. When you actually have to wait until the next book is published, and I'd be like, oh my god, I need to know. I would be so annoyed if I had to wait.
Well, this is your way of asking me if I can send you book 41 of Sweet Valley High. I certainly can. I have your address.
Oh man, I think that this is how you've gotten me hooked into this.
Yay, finally! I roped one in.
You have hooked me onto Sweet Valley High.
Well, Greg and Anjali, thank you so much. Gladiators, thank you so much. We'll find out a way as the Weeks Unfold in hiatus to kind of keep in touch and keep something going, because this is not a time when I feel super comfortable leaving you all with dead air and dead space. In the meantime, you can follow me at Sweet Valley Diaries on Instagram or at Sweet Valley on Twitter. Read the blog. It's sweetvalleydiaries.net. It's existed since 2006, so there's a lot of stuff up there. And also, you can listen to me on a podcast called Not Another Bad Movie Podcast. The episode that was released on April 11th is about a Lifetime movie called Insta Psycho. So that's fun. Shoot me an email, sweetvalleydiaries@me.com. Thank you so much to everybody who has written a note or an email in the past few weeks, especially those of you who have reached out to say that the podcast is like helping you stay like upbeat or like be distracted or whatever, because that is really, really meaningful to me deeply. Like that's kind of the whole point of doing something like this. There's not a whole lot of great reasons to talk about Sweet Valley High as much as I do. So that is a really, really good one. Do you all have anything that you would like to plug? Listeners can check out what you are doing in your lives. You both are doing so many amazing things.
Very much appropriate to this era of media. I just finished a music video for an artist called Sophie Strauss. The song is called Gone, and the music video is a very 80s style homage, very, John Hughes kind of road trip, romantic thing. We actually printed the video down to VHS tapes.
Oh my gosh.
And we are doing like a limited sort of release of these VHS tapes as an art project, but the video will be available online for everybody to see. Again, it's called Gone by Sophie Strauss.
When is that going to be available? Can I put a link in the show notes?
Yeah, so the song drops April 14th, and the video will be available wide April 15th.
Okay, great. So look for a link in the notes for the show to watch the Sophie Strauss video that Greg directed.
And I'm a naturopathic doctor, so I do holistic family medicine, and I see patients virtually. Obviously, right now, being able to be support and help guide people in getting their health and wellness as good as it can be. That's a lot of what I work on. And then on my Instagram, I share a lot of health and wellness tips, and I teach virtual classes on anxiety support, sleep support, things like that. So I always keep that updated on my Instagram.
Awesome. Well, I will put a link to that in the show notes as well. It's so good to see you and to have this nice long conversation with you both. Thank you for reading the book. Thank you. I feel like we've supported each other through this harrowing time, sorrowful time. I feel like the loss might be hitting me a little bit harder than you two, just because I've spent a little more time with the character. Not to compare, to compare grief, to compare trauma. It's never a good idea, but I'm glad. I hope that I have not traumatized you deeply with
I do think that had I been reading the books up until, I think that it would have hit me a lot harder. So just getting to know Regina and being like, oh, she's kind of cool, and oh God, no, you're dead now. It was a just putting a Band-Aid on and ripping it right off. Right?
Okay. Yeah, not as bad as if the Band-Aid is really stuck on there really, really hard. All right. Well, thank you all so much. And thank you, Gladiators. I'll talk to you soon. Don't worry. Bye.
So does that make me Miss America?
Okay, last time. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?